Hello, and welcome to Follow Your Curiosity, where we explore the ups and downs of the creative process and how to keep it moving. I'm your host, Nancy Norbeck. I am a writer, singer, improv comedy newbie, science fiction geek, and creativity coach who loves helping right-brained folks get unstuck. I am so excited to be coming to you with interviews and coaching calls to show you the depth and breadth both of creative pursuits and creative people, to give you some insight into their experiences and to inspire you. My guest today made her debut at the New York City Opera in Handel's Alcina, for which the New Yorker called her a Handelian of crisp accomplishment. She has performed at venues including Carnegie Hall and with companies such as Glimmerglass and the Boston Lyric Opera, in operas including Rigoletto, Faust, and The Barber of Seville. I met mezzo-soprano D'Anna Fortunato in 1992 when I was a junior at Bucknell University. D'Anna began her musical studies at Bucknell before transferring to the New England Conservatory of Music, where she now teaches. If you heard my most recent interview with William Payn, you'll know that D'Anna came back to campus to join the Rook Chapel Choir for a performance of Aaron Copland's In the Beginning. As you're about to hear, she enjoyed her return to campus as much as we enjoyed having her. I'm thrilled that D'Anna was willing to take some time out of her schedule to talk to me. Our conversation ranged from the pros and cons of a liberal arts education versus a conservatory education, what it takes to make it as a conservatory student, the value of doing your homework and really knowing something inside and out, and teaching and encouraging the creative spirit. I've included some recording links in the show notes, so do be sure to check them out. Here's my conversation with D'Anna Fortunato. Thanks so much for talking to me tonight, D'Anna. I'm really, really happy to be able to talk to you. I'm very curious to hear about your creative journey over the years.
Oh, my pleasure.
So I know that you briefly went to Bucknell, but I don't exactly know what happened after you left. I think from looking at your website, I think my impression of where you went may not have been correct. So I'm wondering if you can fill me in.
Okay. In a way, I'm sorry I left. I should have just stayed there. But, people they have plans in their mind that they like to follow through, and everybody wants to become a star at that age. Like, I'll become a star. And so I had in my mind to go to New England Conservatory of Music, which is a wonderful school, but it's not Bucknell. Mm-hmm. And I got some good and some not so good instruction here and there. It's just life. I think this is true in any institution, especially if you're taking voice, if you're in a vocal program. It's a mixed bag. And I stayed there, as is my want. I stuck around and got several degrees and did eventually get those people that I needed to help me in terms of music and making music and having a life in it. They were very, very helpful. So it all worked out in the end. And but I still wished I stayed at Bucknell. What can I say?
What was different about Bucknell that makes you wish you'd stayed?
All of this, of course, is in retrospect, but you can't find some of the one-on-one experience that you would have had at Bucknell in another place. Just can't. A big city school, pressures that Bucknell supplied, but in a very different way, a little more that nurturing and feeling of care and mentoring. Mm-hmm. But that's, it was good while it lasted, I must say. I wish that I'd brought some of those people with me through life. But they're certainly back in the back of my mind, all of these teachers who were so important to me. So it's been good.
Good. Well, I'm curious to hear about the teachers that you knew along the way, especially before you got to Bucknell. When did you realize that music was something that you really needed to do with your life?
I loved music all along and played by ear on the piano all along, much to my sister's regret. But I didn't want to practice, didn't want to do anything, just have fun at the keyboard, but was forced to do so, and then to play organ, and no, that's not working. Then to play violin, and then it was, please don't play that. So, eventually it was like, now what? Around the same time as the vocal change, I thought I had a voice. And so I said to my mother, I want to take voice and I want to sing. I want to be a singer. And she said, well, I don't believe this. But anyway, we went to a wonderful voice teacher named Madame Blanche Baudebeau in Charleston, South Carolina, who was very old-fashioned with long dress, probably in her 70s, long black dress to the floor, very jolly, kindly person. And she said many wonderful things the first meeting, but the big one was, well, yes, you have a talent, but, you know, what do you want to do? And nobody had ever asked me that. I looked to my mother, and Miss Barbeau said, no, I'm asking you, do you really want to do this? And I said, well, yes. Then if you do, nobody will stop you. So I think that was it. You know, somebody who gives you the reins and says, go ahead and do your thing. And
that's
that
amazing.
was it. Isn't that something that was so smart of her?
So amazing.
Yeah, great lady in so many ways. And we did a lot of music, did a lot of singing. I did a lot of practicing, maybe not the best practicing, but I practiced a lot. You know, when you're 14 years old, you don't always know everything.
Right.
But she was very good with the fundamentals, very, very good. So I still think of her a lot. I think of all these people on the line a great deal and thank them, for helping out.
What did your mother think when she said that no one would stop you?
She got very quiet. I think she was, throughout her life, one of these let's wait and see and don't intrude too much type of people.
Mm-hmm.
So she was very supportive, and if Miss Barbeau Madame Barbeau thought that I had an instrument that, she thought it was probably okay, and that I sang a lot in church, did a lot of church solos, and this and that was loud, and I guess it was okay. So, she was a very decent mother. She tried very hard to be supportive and caring, even though I don't think she and my dad had a clue what I was getting into, and I, of course, didn't have a clue. But it became clear that this was a calling, I guess, for all of us. I think this is true. If you're staying in music, it's got to be a calling, because it's the other areas of it are very difficult for many.
Mm-hmm.
So, I've enjoyed the trip and the calling.
So when you finally did realize that it was a calling, what changed for you?
Well, I always knew this was what I wanted to do after being with her, and just kept moving. I must sing this and I must sing that, probably stupidly. I didn't know what I was talking about, but I would sit in the practice rooms in Bucknell and read through a whole Schubert album or something. I mean, it was idiocy, but I just felt like I had to chew up the scenery and make music and sing, and so it just kept going from there. And I'm so glad that I had that drive, and I guess that resilience to keep going. And I try to instill that in my students too.
Sure. How did that resilience show up for you? I mean, where did you find that it already existed for you, and where did you need to build it up? The resilience probably had to do with making music. I knew that I had to make music, and that making sounds and making words and putting it together was of a massive interest to me. It really was something that was life-giving. So that built up a kind of a backlog of need, and I guess I had enough of a vocal resilience that it withstood some of the knocks that I gave it. And so I just kept going, and I guess in the real world, the resilience was what other people would do in terms of, how can I say, in terms of being down-putting or not giving one a hand, and that's okay. I waited my turn, and I did my best, and things worked out okay. And if there was competition, all right.
just move to the side and do your own thing. That's all I've ever wanted to do. Just let other people do their thing. I'll do my thing. It sounds very 60s. Child of the 60s, we'll all do our thing. And invariably in competition, somebody gains and somebody loses. And I don't know what to say about that. But that's the way it is.
It sounds, though, like you haven't really found yourself in the trap that a lot of creative people and a lot of non-creative people, even though I don't think those exist, tend to find themselves in, where they get stuck, trying to deal with comparison, that they're always comparing themselves to somebody else. And then they kind of end up putting themselves down because they think they're not good enough. It sounds to me like you managed not to do that.
I tried not to. I think a lot of young singers probably don't know really what their voice is, and it begins to develop and become clearer and clearer what the parameters are. And if there's extra freedom to begin, then that will help it develop. Somebody said something very telling to me early on. Well, if you treat this instrument well, you can have a long career. And I said to myself, let's sing till I'm 75. And so, I'm moving forward in time. Here we are, and that's okay. Love to sing. And it's true. I think oftentimes things shift, the voice shifts, the repertoire can shift, not for everybody, but it can. And what was not available is now available to one to sing and so forth. So there's a lot of ability to make these adjustments and keep moving. And that's okay. It's not, I wish that it were a longer life so I could do more, but at least I've managed to do a fair amount, and that's good to know.
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow. So with your first teacher in particular, since you are obviously very fond of her, was there any particular piece of advice that she gave you that has really stuck with you over the years?
I think the big one was be true to yourself. Find out what works for you. Find out how to be with other people. Although I had good training in being polite, yes and thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Do the right thing. And coming from the South, that's somewhat ingrained in one. That era, at least, it was you learned how to be polite and give people their due, and then keep going, keep improving, keep struggling, keep finding yourself, and help other people when you can, and that's that. So good advice from her, be true.
Yeah, that's good advice for anybody.
Yep, absolutely.
That's great. So when you finally ended up on the kind of stage that you had dreamed of being on, how did it compare to what you imagined it to be? I don't think I had a real image of it in my mind. Okay. Except that it was going to be a big deal, and a big stage and a big deal and a big audience and a nice costume and all that. And in a way, it really did come true in the New York City Opera, and all the excitement that went with that, and all the fabulous singers and directors and so forth. So the whole thing really matched up to maybe some of my image as a young lady. And so I'm grateful for that too. Was there anything about it that really surprised you that you weren't expecting?
The only thing that has ever surprised me in this business is the amount of, I don't know how to say it. It's not competition, but there's an edge that can go on in our business. And, behind the scenes kind of attitude. But I refuse to acknowledge it and just go forward.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah.
So when you came back to sing with us at Bucknell, was it the first time that you had come back to do something like that?
No, despite my having left halfway through my undergraduate years, they decided that I was okay, and they liked me, and I liked them, and that's good. And so I came back periodically to do recitals. They gave me an alumni award, which was marvelous, and I did some work in the new auditorium there, which was just so exciting. I sang with the Rochester Phil and sang a Baroque concert with a New York group, Handel opera. So it's, there have been a variety of times, and the most recent one was doing a women's song composers program, lecture recital, and that was very, very meaningful. Just to be back and to talk about something that's very dear to me, and to see a lot of old friends there, and to see young students there, it was very gratifying. I hear that a lot of students nowadays don't have a lot of time to go to these recitals, so I was told that this was a better showing than normal. I thought, oh, fantastic.
Oh, wow.
That they get the word exactly. That's you get to a certain age, Nancy, where you want the younger ones, to get the knowledge. I do my best to sort of imprint it on people, either one-on-one or in a group. This is important material, and if they're receptive, and this was a receptive group, it really was, and with a master class the next day, I felt like I was gratifying my need and hopefully passing on something of value to them, and that's wonderful.
I would think so.
Yeah.
Especially when you get to go back someplace like that you're clearly still so fond of.
Oh, I love it. If I could go back 2 or 3 times a year, I would. Absolutely would. It's so beautiful. My God.
It is.
I appreciate it more and more.
It is.
Yeah.
So had you done anything with a current chapel choir when you came back before you did the Copland with us?
No. That was the first after having come back. I sang with the chapel choir when I was young and at the school, and that was wonderful. William McRae was the director, and he was such a low-key, charming, and knowledgeable man.
He was.
Just lovely guy. His daughter, Susan, is a good buddy of mine, and I can see them. I see her mother and father and Susan. It's just wonderful to have that feeling. Well, I just, that's it. That's the first time with Bill Payn. That was a wonderful experience.
From my point of view, it really, in many ways, and of course, this is a memory that goes back a little longer than I want to think about, but to me, it really felt like you were one of us. It was not like, ooh, this. Well, okay, it was like this big important person was coming to sing with us, but you were so much like us in terms of temperament and the personality that we all seem to have in the choir. I talked to Bill Payn about this and how we used to joke that he must have, auditioned us for personality as much as anything else. And he kind of confirmed that.
Yeah, sure.
I remember times when all of us were falling over laughing, including you. It wasn't like, I think we had this impression like this really famous person who's going to come and they're going to be, super serious and never laugh and whatever. And it wasn't like that at all, which I think made it so much more fun. We really enjoyed having you there.
Oh, me too. How boring to be stuffy. My God, I have to have a joke or 2 or 3 at least. We do that at the dinner table too. Now, what happened today? Well, let's see. I tied my shoelaces, and and then I changed the car oil, and then everybody starts to nod off and snore, and we have fun. We have fun being silly. So thank God for it.
Yeah. So what did you think? I assume that Bill called you and said, "Hey, would you be interested in coming to do this?" Was it completely out of the blue, or did you have any idea he was planning something?
Well, I caught wind of it. I knew him. I think I'd had a conversation or 2 with him on the phone, and it was a little bit that way. I don't know how he had concocted the program, but he certainly, it's just really fantastic. He got the funding, he got the engineering, which was well done, and certainly the acoustic was fantastic. And then you folks did such a good job. My God, that piece is so hard, just so hard. My God, you folks sang it perfectly, and I was probably not quite perfect, but we were able to sustain the harmony and the tonality, and it went off pretty dang well. So that was gratifying. And
it
then,
did.
Really it was. And then the other music that went with it was very, very, very telling, and I think very well suited. Rudy Palmer's music, that's so gorgeous, my God. Such a beautiful piece. So that was well considered on Bill's part, and to have some of those other American songs brought into the mix, I think was just right. He had a real sense of it. Good man.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because we did that recording for the CD in American Collage, which had a lot more of you on it.
Yeah.
Than we did in Boston, where we first did the Copland.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I mean, I know he and I discussed this too. He never said to us, "This is really hard. We might not be able to do it."
Oh.
It was just, here it is. This is what we're going to sing.
Right. Just get on with it.
It was a little bit later that he told us that Jim Jordan from Westminster had reacted quite strongly in disbelief when he said that this was what we were going to do. And I think when he picked it, he knew that we were going to ACDA. I'm sure he did.
Mm-hmm.
But it was never, hey, we don't know if this is going to work. We might have to do something else. Never anything like that with him on any piece, but definitely not with that one. And so, we just went in following him. I mean, we'd have followed him anywhere. So
yeah, I know. He's that kind of guy.
And it's funny because even though I've sung this piece, and even though you're saying the same thing that he said last week and that Jim Jordan said, it's a really, really hard piece. It doesn't feel that way to me. And I think it's because he just never presented it that way.
Is that something?
So there may have been some element of, we don't know if we'll pull this off, but if there was, he never said a word about it. And so, we just went and did our thing. And it, at least to me, it just felt seamless and comparatively easy. Not as easy as, Still that we sang at that performance is beautiful, but nowhere near as complicated as the Copland.
Right.
But it just kind of all felt like it belonged together. And so I don't know if you had any trepidation when he told you that was what we were going to sing or not, but it's interesting that he has that way of just kind of being like, nope, this is what we're going to do.
Isn't that smart? Such a wise person, just to kind of forward motion, go ahead and take care of it, it'll be fine. And that's true, and seems to me in music making, just do your thing, get on with it. And, he presented it so well, conducted it, rehearsed it so well. The whole thing really was seamless. And to get to do it, and do a beautiful job and record it and sing it in concert, my God, good stuff.
Have you done it in other places?
I'd done it in Washington. A while before that, Washington, D.C., and had gotten a chance to coach with Mr. Copland himself. He came. I know. I was intimidated, to say the least, but he was the most easygoing person I think I've ever met. Very, very relaxed. He was there at the coaching, and just a few little suggestions here and there, but nothing earth-shattering. Just extremely low-key, extremely kind. And just even if he conducted a little bit, it was just very seamless and really as though he was part of the music, and it was his music. So
sure.
That was just a wonderful experience to get to know somebody like that who, as you say, has a name, but he didn't present that way. It was wonderful.
Yeah. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
That must have been really cool.
It was. It just goes to show that people are people, and some are more approachable than others, and he certainly was just kind person. So I'm grateful to have that experience.
Sure. Is there anyone else like that stands out for you that you've been able to work with?
Oh God, there are a lot of people who are approachable and nice people. I don't know why this just came through my mind, because maybe the anniversary had just come through, but Leonard Bernstein, just a great great soul, kind soul. I don't know whether that was true across the board, but he was very decent to me. It was at Tanglewood, and he needed, on the spur of the moment, somebody to come and sing the Missa Solemnis of Beethoven in a big rehearsal with the orchestra. And so I was there with the chorus. He said, "Come on and sing it." I thought, okay. So I sang the alto solo. Why not? What the hell? Sang the alto solo, and I've never received so many bear hugs in my entire life.
Wow.
Very, very warm person. I've heard that from others. He just could be an enveloping personality. A little excitable, a little over the top, but oh my God, talk about earthy and kindly. It was really something. So grateful for that.
So a little over the top as opposed to larger than life, which is more what I would have guessed.
Probably a little bit of both. He was a big personality, but he, on the podium, you could tell he was working it hard, to get this to happen. This was his involvement. I just love that about people. I guess I didn't think of him in terms of being a god. I just thought, my God, this man's such a hard worker. My goodness. So that was just an impression of him, that he really was a little over the top, because that music is over the top.
Oh, and, sure.
He handled it all with great elan and excitement, and he was Leonard Bernstein. So it was a good experience.
Wow. Is there a particular performance that stands out as a favorite for you? Would it be that one, or?
Oh my God. That's hard to answer that.
Tough call, right?
I love so many performances. I can't
give us a
choose
glimpse
it.
of a couple of them.
Oh goodness. Well, gosh, there were a lot of BSO performances I did. There was a fun one when I did Falstaff, Meg Page and Falstaff with Seiji Ozawa. We staged it and this and that, and there were some other staged things that I did with the BSO, a lot of BSO stuff, and a lot of other orchestral things. New York, Phil, had some good experiences there. So, it's just hard to pinpoint, because I guess I try to just jump right in with both feet, whatever it is I'm doing, and just, get really with it. And sometimes it really does, it just, I'm sure you've had this experience where the night was special and everything came together, and it leaves a big imprint when that happens. It's really, thank God for it, then we have something to carry with us.
Yes.
Good stuff. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
What about, I know that there are certain things that when I sing them, they just feel really, really good to sing.
Yeah.
Are there things like that for you? Is there a favorite thing you enjoy singing more than anything else?
Oh, goodness. You really are asking me the hard questions. I like to sing what I have to learn.
It doesn't have to be the very, very top. I know it's hard to rank things when you're not expecting the question, but if
that's okay.
If there's anything that you really love.
Well, I love Shepherd on the Rock of Schubert. That can just be a wonderfully gratifying piece. I love Parto Parto, that aria from Clemenza di Tito. Love stuff with clarinet. What can I tell you? I don't know. I love chamber music. I love opera to a degree. Love Handel. Or if I could do nothing but Handel, I'd be happy. So there's a lot of things that I think for most people are self-gratifying, that they find something that feeds their musical soul. And I'm glad for that.
What is it about Handel that you love so much more than, say, Bach or whoever?
Oh, Bach's okay too. I forgot Bach. I don't quite know. I mean, Bach sometimes gets a little bit too complex for my taste. Handle can be a little bit more laid out, and then you can fill in the gaps a little bit more. So for some reason, that satisfies some needs. So all these is just so subjective, don't you think? It's like, wait, why this and not that? And, I'll take Bach, though, if somebody's offering Bach. That's good stuff. Oh, boy.
And it's a little bit of an unfair question because I could ask you the same question next week and you might say something different.
Yeah, well, I'm a kind of a universalist. I like a lot of different things.
Well, that's probably handy because I'm sure you've had to sing such a wide variety of things.
Well, that's true. We sort of live in an era where everybody wants to specialize. And I knew I was in trouble when I didn't want to just be a Baroque specialist. That bored me to tears. So I said, well, what the hell? I'm going to sing whatever comes my way. And if my voice can handle it and I can make it work and get something out of it for the audience and for me, then I'll do it. And that has its good and bad points, because we are in that era. Well, don't you want to be a specialist? No, that bores me. It just bores me. So I never did it. But I'm glad I had all those other experiences.
Yeah, I think your range of experiences has to be much wider because you didn't do that.
Yep. And that's, to me, I guess everybody, again, is different, but that keeps me going. The challenge of, and now we're singing some contemporary music, and now tomorrow we're going to sing some early music. And, keeps you, how about a little opera? I think that's fun, just great fun.
That's fantastic. And you're teaching at New England Conservatory now. Back
to my alma mater, teaching there and mostly loving it all. I've been there for a long time. Whoops, I don't know if you can hear that, but I've been teaching there 25 years in the college division, which was good. I loved it. And now for the last 6 years in the prep division, I teach these older high school kids who are really devoted. They're part of a Handel and Haydn apprentice program, Handel and Haydn Society, and they're devoted to music and to possible careers in music and voice. And just sent 3 of them off one to Juilliard, one to Northwestern, and the other one to the University of Michigan. And so,
nice.
Very excited. They're very talented. And that again pleases me. I think it arrive at different points in your life where different things please you and gratify you. And this is the time for the students to be boosted up and sent on their way. So I'm glad I can do that.
Sure. How do you find teaching? I mean, do you draw a lot on what you learned from your teachers, or is it more from your own experience?
I guess a little bit of both, but the teacher who was really important to me, her name was Gladys Miller. She taught at NEC, and I had her towards the end of my time there. She, just by force of personality and her understanding of music, she's the one that's imprinted on me, and I bring her forward. A lot of humor, a lot of silliness. I wish I had more of her humor, just quips and ability. But she would be one of these people who would say, okay, honey, what are you singing now today? And what's the key? And she'd do a stride bass or whatever bass she wanted to do, and then she knew the tune. It went on and on. I don't know how many thousands of pieces she knew, but she had a remarkable ability.
Wow.
Got me to sing in ways that I never thought I could. So, and just because of that kind of teaching around the edges, she would get to you, and I'm sure she used on others, not the direct action, you must this, you must that. It was very indirect, but there was a lot of knowledge that came through nonetheless. And 5 lessons a week, which you can't do now, but I had about 20, 25 minutes every day, and then sit on the couch and listen to really something. That's the old Italian technique. And then you'd sit there and listen to other people sing. And so it was your life. You just lived the life, and you heard it, and you sang it, and you had a cup of coffee, and then you came back again, and you sang it and lived it. And so she immersed me, and I can't do that to students now. Nonetheless, I try to imprint some of these ideals that she passed on to me. And I guess some of my performing experience, I suppose, throw it in the mix too. Why not? And bring that to bear. And so it's been really gratifying.
It sounds like it.
Yeah.
Are there things that your students have taught you?
Oh, always. Always. You know, to me, this is not just somebody holding forth. You know, it's learning about the other person, understanding their difficulties and their challenges, helping them to overcome themselves. And oftentimes, students will come forth with something that I find to be, you know, very unusual and helpful to me and probably to others. You know, their view of the world and their ideals for the future. I'm gratified to know that there's just not a lot of kids running around. You know, they're bobbing along with no idea of what the world means or what they can give to the world. That there are these kids who really have a passion and a desire to be of some service and create beauty in the world, which we're needing more and more desperately. And so,
definitely,
I'm so grateful for them and their feeling and their care.
What happens if one of them starts to lose faith? How do you handle that?
Faith in general, or faith in terms of
or in themselves? Yeah.
I think that everybody goes through a trough, a period where you get discouraged and you're unsure, and it's hard to commit anymore or motivate anymore. And so at that point, I usually get a little quiet and talk things through, finding out what's disturbing them, if possible, and finding ways to bring it back, because everybody's going to have a little trouble here and there. Students oftentimes, and maybe you've seen this or experienced this, they go through these waves, where things are up and then things are down, and they had this, that, and that, the other thing happened. And just to find a means to help them slowly overcome their feelings. Sometimes they've lost weight, sometimes they've gained weight, sometimes they have a vocal difficulty, sometimes it can be fairly serious, or sometimes it's allergies, or their minds are exhausted from too much being thrown at them. And I try to address it as best I can if I see it and understand it, just to say that take a rest, mentally take a rest vocally, go and meditate, think about what you need and want and write it down, or just let it be for a while. Sometimes just letting it sit. So it's life, especially for a singer, I think.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I think that's true for all sorts of artists, but yeah, anything where your body is part of what you're doing, I think there's more potential for fear and trepidation and discouraging moments.
Right. I think they really are. I just hope to re-inspire them, and sometimes I'll get them a video of somebody, who, listen to this, or go see that Pavarotti movie, which is out there now. I found that just to be amazingly inspiring. So I hope they all went. I don't know, maybe they didn't. But here's somebody, maybe it was a major artist, maybe he didn't have that many struggles, but many ways he really did. And here's how he overcame them. This is just one example. And try to relate to him as a person. Because did you see the movie, Nancy? It was really remarkable.
I haven't yet, no.
Well, a lot of it was behind the scenes, and a little bit was airbrushed, but there was some of it that wasn't. The times when, he was lonely or exhausted, and he had to pull it together.
Sure.
But again, another personality who was very open, very warm. He loved people. My God. So you see it. If you don't cry, I'd be amazed. Be able to
I'll get back to you on that one.
All right, please. It's just remarkable. Good stuff.
That's great.
Yeah.
So do you notice a difference in how you work with kids in the high school age versus college age, undergrad age?
Undergrad and grad, I had both. What is lacking is that they may be head of their class and maybe are singing all the major roles that are thrown to them, but there's a kind of a naivety and a sweetness to many of them. And if they are defensive, I try to work through that to get them to find an emotional core that's more real and more human, so that they can express themselves. And they're a little bit more amenable to all that, it seems to me, at least the ones that I've taught, than the college kids who come in. They've already been, the head of their class, and they're going to reach for the stars, and they'll be singing the major role in their opera at the school tomorrow, and the answer is maybe not.
Mm-hmm.
So, what I've said to any college kid is, remember, everybody in your class was the star, everybody. And the school doesn't hire on bad voices.
Mm-hmm.
They want the best. So your job is to take care of your talent, take care of your voice, do your best, and slowly, become who you're going to become as a singer. And, when you're ready for a role, the time will come. So nobody's happy with that, of course. What? No, tomorrow. No, that's okay. Then they find out what it is and find their place within the school, and that's expected. That's expected.
Isn't that curious how everybody wants to just jump in and do their thing right this minute, and yet I don't think that any of us really, when we start something like that, stop to think about how there is merit and even comfort in figuring out where you belong first.
Right. I agree. Well, I guess they paid attention because they did okay. And, somebody said, or several people said, well, I came in thinking I was going to get this out of the school, and then I got something different. Well, I said, was it as valuable? Oh, yes, and probably maybe more so. So it's a maturating, maturing process.
Yeah, I think the things that we don't expect sometimes are way more valuable than the ones we expect or even want.
Oh, absolutely. So it's always a challenge, but the high school kids, there's a sweetness there, and a kind of a growth that you see more and more, very startling.
Mm-hmm.
When you take somebody who's a freshman or sophomore, and then they're a senior, it's like, wow, isn't this something? When you see them by leaps and bounds become more adult and more mature and more confident, more caring, and it's just really something.
Yeah, having taught high school kids, I would agree with that.
Yep. Good stuff.
A lot happens in those 4 years.
Oh, yeah. And there's something. Love it. Just love it.
Really does.
Yeah.
But it's also interesting to me because this happened to some of us in my MFA program in writing, where we'd have that moment of doubt and we would think, do I really belong here? Was I admitted by mistake? But like you said, if you're in a school like that, you're there because they want you to be there. But it's so easy to doubt that anyway. It is.
And I think not everybody lasts at a school like NEC. I think traditionally, not always true, but it seems like the class size kind of divides in half by the end of the sophomore year, because it isn't a college. It is not a college. Thank God I had a college experience, but this is a conservatory, and it's a professional school, and it doesn't offer that degree of sort of safety and connectivity that you may get in a college or even a university program. So they oftentimes they can't handle the stress. They can't handle the pressure. So, but those who stay, it can be very gratifying.
So you had mentioned that when we first started talking that, you kind of wish that you had stayed at Bucknell. Do you have advice for, kids who are trying to decide whether they're better off at a conservatory or at a regular undergrad institution with a really good music program?
It's so individual. It's hard for me to say. I know the three girls that are going on to these college experiences this next year. I knew that one of them would get into a Juilliard. She's top drawer. That's an amazing talent, amazing intellect, amazing musician, and she has a good chance of making it in this world. The other two, I kept saying, well, don't you want to try X, Y, or Z? And, you know, and they were like, but I feel better here. I'm like, okay, you know, I can only say so much. And then I did say, but keep it in the back of your mind, these schools and these teachers that you've talked to, because in the future, you never know. There may be a master's program that you want to continue with, and this may be another viable area to go to, another school. So, you know, I always say to people, don't collapse your bridges you've gone over. You may need to go back over them again, and
right.
You know, utilize that experience. So I don't know anybody's listening to me anymore. Who knows? But I do I do say, hey, college is a great experience. You know, Bucknell I think still would be good for some people, even more so because it's a bigger music division and the facilities are fantastic, and the teachers, from what I saw, really, you know, top drawer. So it could well be a wonderful experience for many, many people.
Well, it's great that you've had both of those experiences, so you can speak to both of them with a kid who's trying to decide.
That's true. I try to show both sides of the coin. But nowadays, young people are not exactly like those from my era who listened to their parents back then. You know, my mother said, wouldn't you like to go to Bucknell? No, I want to go to a conservatory. Well, let's make a deal. So I made a deal with her. You go there for a while and then, you know, see how you like it or don't, and then we can reconsider later. And so we did. And I'm not sorry, not for a minute. She was very wise. And anytime I get a chance to take a parent to the side and say, by the way, make sure, you know, that what you're paying for and what you feel this young person needs are one and the same. You know, that you're not signing off on anybody in any way, shape, or form. You know, that they are not necessarily complete adults at this point, that they are still young people and they need you to be involved to a degree. You may not think so, but don't sign off on anything. Anyway, yeah, that's the biggest piece of advice, because I've seen some crash and burns at the conservatory. Young people, the parents should have had some knowledge of what was happening. And I guess across the board, that doesn't happen very often anymore. You know, the young people are on their own, and their privacy issues are paramount, which I get. But then again, they're not quite adults yet. So, right. You know, it's just my old-fashioned self. You know, try to be conservative and try to do the right thing for the young person. So,
well, there's nothing wrong with that.
No, I still talk about it, you know, and hope that somebody's listening.
Sure.
Yep.
What do you think it takes to get through conservatory these days that kids might not necessarily realize it takes to get through?
Well, I would say it's the YouTube generation. You know, I'll just listen to this 25 times and then sing it, and the answer is no. No, it's called read music. You know, you pick up the score, you read the notes down, and you sing it or whatever it is, and then the theory that comes is probably more rigorous than they're used to, or even the piano skills. They don't oftentimes have it in the high school. They may have a great or very fine talent and may have been, you know, in the shows and highlighted and so forth, but that doesn't mean that you've gone in depth with the music. So that's the shock for most of them now. And what I do in my own little way is to force the issue. You know, in the past, I would give them music they couldn't find on YouTube, and then they'd have to deal with it. What do you mean? I can't find this on YouTube? Nope. Absolutely not. I doubt it most sincerely. Oh, you mean I have to learn it? Yep. You know, and here's a sheet of information on how to learn it. Go ahead and I'll help you. But, you know, go ahead and involve yourself. Oh, my goodness. You know, the whining and the carrying on is pretty great. But by the time they've headed for the senior year or farther into their master's, they've you know, coped up, as I say, and gotten it together if they wanted to continue on. And there is a lot of hand-holding these days, awful lot of hand-holding, tutoring and carrying on, my goodness, because the backgrounds often are not what they should be. Many of the graduate students that come to Conservatory, not just NEC, don't have a language underneath them from their college experience. Well, we had diction, and that's the only thing we need. I'm like, I don't think so. So NEC has had to provide, and I think this is true across the board, has had to provide a 2-year program of German and French. I guess they figure Italian somehow they'll have picked up the Italian, and hopefully they can gain more of it as a language a little bit later as things go on. So that's the difficulty nowadays, Nancy. The expectations are sliding downward, and then they have to be picked up for them to graduate to be able to function in the real world. And I always just have said that: make sure you're getting what you need to function, because otherwise, nobody will wait for you after the fact. Those that have gained it, have decided to push themselves forward, will be the ones that will win it out. So, still true.
And it's interesting to me, I've never done music on that level, but when you're talking about, yes, you need to learn this piece, and you need to know it inside and out. I have often noticed, because, I'm here right near Princeton, and in the summer, Westminster Choir College usually does an open sing or two where anybody could show up, and, maybe it's, the B minor mass, or probably not, because that would be too hard.
Yeah.
I mean, one of them that I went to was the Vaughan Williams Dona Nobis Pacem several years back. I heard this thing on the radio. I bought the recording because I absolutely loved it. And I'm that weirdo who, would drive to work blasting it out of her car in the morning. And so, I went because I thought, this is going to be great. I'm finally going to get to sing this. And it was a stumbling mess. And I think there were enough other people there that it sounded like something, but it wasn't like when you go to do the Fauré or, the Mozart Requiem or the Schubert Mass in G or whatever that everybody knows. And that was really when I realized that there's such a huge difference between hearing something and knowing it to hear it, and actually knowing that piece from the inside out.
Yep.
Whereas, I can have parts that are my favorite thing to listen to, but they very, very well may not be the same parts that are my favorites to sing, that there's something very different that happens in that process, but also that you just can't really, truly appreciate a piece of music until you really know it.
Yep, that's very true.
I went to that Fauré sing, and, recently with a friend who'd never sung it before. And I found myself kind of feeling a little bit bad for her, because I thought, okay, it's great that you're getting to sing this for the first time, and it's not a hard piece of music, but it's not the same as when you know it and you're really looking forward to it and you just go because you know what you're doing. There's something so different about those two processes.
Oh, very, very, very. I guess if you were to go back to the idea of what people finally get from Conservatory or a good university or whatever music program, I hope this is still true, that the solfege needs to be really tightened up. You really need your skills. The rhythmic dictation and the oral skills, and unless it's there, I might as well pack it up. If you want to be a professional solo singer, is because this. This has to be, you'll have to open up the score and be able to sing it down, oftentimes with no rehearsal, a little rehearsal, and then everybody's, no, I don't want to do that. And the answer is, well, let's see, did you want to have this career and make money, or do you just want to go home and sing for yourself? Or what is it that we're hoping to do? So the real world, of course, is something very different from what everybody imagines, but the better they have their skills together, reading, clef reading even, I believe in that very, very strongly. I'd love to get those skills back myself, and, get your rhythmic skills really, really tightened up. You're going to have a chance in this world, and the chance may come. Somebody may pick up the phone and say, Mary Jane Diddley Bop is sick tonight, and we need somebody tomorrow, ASP, to sing this down, and we'll pay you thousands of dollars. And you're going to say, no, I'm sorry, I can't read like that. And the answer is no, go ahead, check it out. If you have the skills, you should be able to read a lot of music down. So that's what I hope people get out of it. Gain those skills for themselves, because otherwise the real world ain't a picnic. After the old expression.
Well, and I think that goes in so many different ways. It's I don't think you have to be a singer to be able to say, if the opportunity presents itself, I'm going to take it. Right. I've talked on this podcast before about the improv rule in theater that is, you say yes and, and obviously you're not going to say yes and to everything. You're the famous example that your mother always gave of, if everybody else were jumping off the Empire State Building, don't say yes and to that. At least not without a really good parachute.
Yes, that's right.
But, the more you're open to things like that, and the more you can say yes and to what life throws at you, the more you get to do, and especially things that you never would have thought that you would do. But if they turn up, you want to be ready to actually jump on them. Absolutely.
And then, you build a reputation that way. So I hope that somebody's listening. Keep talking about it. And they get those skills anyway, despite themselves. So thank God for it.
That's kind of funny when you end up with those skills in spite of yourself. It's kind of poetically wonderful.
Isn't it something? Thank God for it. Mercy.
That's great.
Good stuff. Well,
it's really good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that you said yes and back when I was at Bucknell, because it was an awful lot of fun, and it's been an awful lot of fun talking to you now.
Oh, you as well. I could always talk about Bucknell forever and ever. So many great things to say about it, and we'll keep the Bucknellian spirit going.
Well, we'll do our best.
Absolutely.
We'll do our best. So, but thanks again for doing this. This was really fun.
Thanks, Nancy. All the best. Appreciate it.
That's our show for this week. Don't forget, I've included some recording links in the show notes. You can give them a listen at fycuriosity.com. My thanks to D'Anna Fortunato and to you. If you enjoyed this week's episode, please do share it with a friend. Thanks. You can find show notes, the 6 creative beliefs that are screwing you up, and more at fycuriosity.com. I'd also love for you to join the conversation on Instagram. You'll find me at fycuriosity. Follow Your Curiosity is produced by me, Nancy Norbeck, with music by Joseph McDade. If you like Follow Your Curiosity, please subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to tell your friends. It really helps me reach new listeners. See you next time.